Sorry, let me compose myself. Hey guys, what's up? It's imuRgency and welcome back to my channel. Today we're here to talk about the brand new Netflix show, Heartstopper. And I have to say, this was such a fun watch for me because the entire show is just so wholesome and so feel good. There was something in that show that really struck a chord with me. I feel like it's essentially just like the modern Gen Z gay love story that I feel like a lot of us have been waiting for, and I'm very happy that it's here. So today we're gonna be getting into Heartstopper, really talking about why I feel like this show is so impactful, and really analyzing whether or not this show strays away from the typical gay love story tropes that we see in shows like Love Victor, Love Simon, Sex Education, and I guess Gossip Girl? Yeah, we have a lot to get into, so let's talk about Heartstopper. Before we get into the actual review, if you are new to the channel, then hit that subscribe button because that helps out a lot. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button because that helps out this video a lot with the algorithm. In fact, I'll give you all a second to do it while I take a sip of this spicy ginger tea. Sorry. All right, go ahead, get to it. I'll wait. You good? Cool. Oh yeah, also by the way, while you're at it, make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok at imuRgency to keep up with the more fashion, lifestyle, and more show review side of me. Anyways, let's get started. So Heartstopper has been a show that I've had my eye on for quite a bit now, and luckily enough, Netflix was nice enough to give me some early access screeners to preview the show for this review for you guys. Don't worry, this is not sponsored, and all these opinions are definitely my own, but just a quick thank you to Netflix for that. And I've been having my eye on the show because, for one, it's another queer love story, which I personally just can't get enough of. And two, it just seemed really reminiscent of Sex Education, not just because they're British, but the whole vibe of the show seemed really like raw and gritty and authentic in the same way that Sex Education was. And if you've seen any of my reviews of Sex Education, you know how much I really love that show. So I was just really hyped going into it. And I would say right now, I was not disappointed. So if you haven't had the luxury of seeing Heartstopper yet, it basically follows these two main characters, Charlie and Nick. Charlie is an openly gay high school boy who goes to this like all boys school, and he faces a lot of like bullying and ridicule for being gay, and ends up getting manipulated and taken advantage of, which we will talk about later because wow, and ends up falling for Nick, the super athletic and masculine boy on the rugby team. And the story just kind of follows their whole relationship of like Nick figuring out what his sexuality is and them just becoming whatever they become. Now, while that premise does sound very cliche and very similar to pretty much every single queer coming of age show ever, it is to a certain extent, but it also handles the story in a very tactful and unique way. And let's get into it. So of course, with a lot of queer coming of age shows, we have like the typical setup of where it's like one outwardly gay character falls for this other masculine, mysterious character where like they're presumed to be straight, and it's a whole like coming to terms with your sexuality thing. But I feel like Heartstopper is so different because even in its first episode, it really bypasses a lot of like what the typical annoying setup is for a lot of these shows. Like one show that I think of in particular is Young Royals. Not saying that Young Royals is bad at all. Y'all know I love Young Royals. But the first episode of Heartstopper, I thought it was going to be like Young Royals, where it was just like a lot of setup where like the characters know each other, but there's no interest really expressed. And I was afraid they spent the whole season trying to go back and forth with Nick and Charlie's relationship in the sense that like disregard Charlie and like not really care for him or even like try and be like himself, because I feel like that's like a trope with a lot of them, and then at the end just miraculously like coming together, like being like all lovey-dovey. But it's a little different from that. That first episode cuts through all that, makes it very clear that there is at least some mutual interest between both parties, and the buddings of their relationship really just come in really fast. So like within the first two episodes, like it's clear like yeah, there's something going on here, and the rest of the season is just like them developing whatever is going on between them. And I genuinely really like that because it felt really authentic in the sense that it wasn't like this random thing like in Love Simon or Love Victor, where it's like a mystery the whole time, and then all of a sudden it's just like this big, really public surprise, and then everyone acts like everything's okay, because like that's just like not realistic, you know? Like that's just not how the show, like that's just not how actual real life is. Like in this show, there's like no magic to it, there's no gimmick. You're just simply watching two people build something with each other, something real and something authentic with each other, which is so nice to see. I just know that the show's gonna have such an impact on people in high school or in middle school who are trying to figure themselves out, because it shows that like authentic growth and like that not everything is just like a random surprise. And two, it gives a realistic or a more grounded depiction of what it's like to be queer, both in high school and in just society in general. Because I feel like, again, with a lot of shows that involve queer characters, they either make the lives of the queer folk exceptionally difficult, like awful, like basically make their lives so difficult that it kind of makes it seem like, damn, this like sucks, or like really sucks, or it completely glamorizes it in like this ideal type of world where like no one's like which is nice in an ideal world, but just isn't realistic. Like in this show, you get a mix of both, which I feel like is more so grounded in reality. And I feel like that's a really important message to youth or people that are still in the closet, because it honestly may not always be sunshine and rainbows, but it's not all doom and gloom as well, which gives people a more realistic image and a better sort of mental timeline as to when or if they want to come out and what circumstances and what really comes along with that. Now let's get into some of the characters, because I feel like the cast of this show is so well done. Like everyone really did eat their role up. Like they really gave a full performance. I briefly touched on Charlie and Nick, but just to give more color to their characters. Charlie's whole thing this season is that he is pretty much traumatized from his past relationship I use in quotes, with this other guy in his school who's very closeted and really just treats him so badly. It's like one of those things where Charlie is meant to be kept a secret, and in public, this boy will outwardly disrespect him, ignore him, act like he doesn't know him, and bully him, but behind closed doors, he's like, hey baby, how you doing? And ew. And there's actually a scene where things get pretty serious, and I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't seen the show yet, but there are some really mature aspects to that whole relationship, which are very much so problematic. It really is Ben, because how are you the problem? And then consistently show up throughout the story being like, why are you so obsessed with me? You know what? You're worthless. Like, that's why no one wants to be seen in public with you. Like, who asked? Where do you come from? Ben pops up out of nowhere to assert his opinion and try and be a little main character, like try and be a little bully. Like, you are clearly the one that's getting obsessed, because as soon as you leave the screen, I forget that you're here. You have to keep coming back to remind us that, hey, I'm still here and you're obsessed with me. Like, really, I promise you, Charlie ain't worrying about you. But as far as Charlie goes, he has to learn throughout the season to really know his self-worth and love himself and stand up for himself and his friendships, which is really great to see. Then we have Nick. And Nick, I have like a love-hate with Nick. Like, Nick is really sweet, but I feel like throughout this season, he was like a mirror to Ben, to be honest. Like, and he realized that, and I feel like that was his main changing point this season, because he at first wanted to keep it a secret while he was trying to come to terms with his sexuality, and they even pointed out, like, being like, oh yeah, this is a totally different situation from Ben, when in reality, it was kind of paralleling, and it took a while for Nick to really get to the point where it was different from Ben. Like, it's just the way for me that Nick continuously said it like thrice, that he was about to cut off his friends. But did he? No, not until the very end. It was words, but no actions for a large portion of it, and I feel like that is what was keeping a distance between the two of them. Like, while Nick was never homophobic and never actually rude to Charlie, he definitely did enable it by continuing to hang out with people that were. And my thing was, you know, like the date scene, they go on a date, right? They go to this movie theater and they go on this date. Why, when they found out that the bullies were going to the same movie theater, why did you go and see the same movie? Why did you stay there? Why did you not be like, you know what, I know this isn't gonna go well, let's go to a different movie, or let's do something else, you know? Even if you wanted to go see the same movie, why did you sit right next to them? Right next to, like, Nick had me so sick for so much of this. But then we have Elle. I love Elle. I just love Elle so much. She's honestly one of my favorite characters in this show, just because she's really like the glue to like the greater friend group of like Charlie, Tao, who we'll get into, Elle, and Isaac. Like, she's just like the glue of the friendship, and I really love her. She's also trans and dives into that whole aspect in the show, which I feel like is really refreshing and really great for representation's sake in telling that experience. But her whole thing this season is that like she kind of has a crush on the mutual friend Tao, and my thing is, I thought they were dating from like episode 1. Like, the way that they talk about each other, like, I thought that they were already together, but apparently they were just friends, but friends that are building to something. And I just really like seeing how Tao and Elle's friends to lovers developed over time, even though it was never actually confirmed that they actually got together. In fact, it was given like the opposite. Like, I want to know what y'all think on this. Do you think it was good that they left that ambiguous, like they didn't confirm or like actually say like any feelings for each other? It was just like all through like the mind games, like, you know, like little animations that came up where it was like heart, spark. For me personally, it kind of bugged me that they left it off without confirming it, because I feel like they had like a true connection, and like neither of them wants to actually take the step, which I feel like, again, for realism's sake, is true, because I feel like a lot of situations like that where two friends really have feelings for each other but don't want to actually cross that boundary because they're afraid of what comes after makes sense. But it adds more context to the conversation that Tao and Elle had, where Tao is like, no matter what happens, we need to make sure that we stay friends first. Like, in my heart of hearts, I feel like that wasn't about necessarily Charlie and the rest of the friend group. It was between Tao and Elle, giving like the okay, like if we actually go through with this and start seeing each other, that even if we break up, even if things are ugly, like we still will be friends. I personally feel like Elle misinterpreted that, or maybe it was just foreshadowing. I don't know, but I think they should have ended up together, confirmed, but you know, that's neither here nor there. Tao himself though annoyed me this season. He was so annoying. My thing with Tao is I just really don't know how to feel about him. Like this whole season, he was just giving jealous behavior. He was giving jealous friend. And I get that he keeps saying that it's because he's afraid of being alone. Like he's afraid of being abandoned by his friends. But explain why. Like we needed some more development as to why Tao feels that way. Like what happened in his past to make him feel that way, you know? Because without that context, it just seems like he's like overbearing and annoying for the sake of being overbearing and annoying, which doesn't feel good. I need a reason for the abandonment issues to understand and empathize. Like otherwise I'm just annoyed at you. And another thing, how did he not know that Charlie and Nick were seeing each other or were interested in each other mutually? Because the closet was made out of glass. Like honestly, I'll say it. The closet was made out of glass. Like especially for that friend group, Charlie and Nick were all over each other. They're constantly together. They're constantly like always having these side conversations. Like you really thought they were just friends for real? Dead ass? Like wow. I don't get it, but all right. Next I want to talk about something that I feel like is really important, something that we don't really see enough, especially in a lot of queer media, a lot of queer mainstream media, are WLW relationships. Like usually in these types of shows, it's mostly just focused on men, and then they'll have like a little WLW moment, and then that will be it. But I feel like this show does a really great job of integrating both, or at least trying to integrate both, because we have Tara and Darcy, who are Elle's friends, and honestly, I love Tara down. Like I really do love Tara down. Like it was so great to see their relationship as a foil, and their relationship contrasted against Charlie and Nick's relationship because those two things are very similar. Like Darcy was the one who has been out as a lesbian for a very long time, similar to Charlie, and Tara was the one who came out as a result of their relationship. And just seeing how Nick and Tara would interact and sort of grow and learn from each other, I loved it. I loved it. And I have to emphasize again that these weren't just like throwaway characters just for having like diversity or like anything like that. Like they actually gave Tara development. Like they showed the pushback of what happened when she actually publicly came out on social media, or just like what happened in school. Like she was struggling. People were saying some really nasty things. Like of course there were people that were being positive, but also she said that there were people being just as negative. And seeing her growth and her learning to love and accept herself in her relationship, it warmed my heart just a little bit. It warmed it. It did. Like Tara is just so real and I love her for it. And now the final group of people I want to talk about for this show really are the adults and the role of adults in the show, because I feel like that is also something that's important. I feel like something that might be glossed over a lot when people talk about this show. I feel like the role of adults in the show are really interesting because they aren't non-existent, but they also aren't overbearing. Like I feel like adults in the show are really meant to be guides for each of these characters to sort of figure their shit out on their own, you know? Like for example, the art teacher, like he was meant to be a mentor and role model for Charlie. The parents throughout the show were just there to really be there as supports and not give answers, but give suggestions to help them figure out and like critically think and like figure out their problems on their own, which I think is really nice, because usually in shows, either parents are non-existent and you're like, what are these kids doing? Or they're just like always there and it seems like kind of preachy. I just really like how they integrated like adult and like guidance as like mentor figures as opposed to like, I don't know, people who are like the bad guys. And that sort of speaks to the show as a whole. Like it's wholesome. Like it's just very wholesome. Like it's not overly sexual at all like a lot of coming of age shows are nowadays, like drama coming of age shows. It really just is a feel good show, and I feel good because of it. Like when I ended the show, I was like happy. I had a smile on my face. I was like, oh yes, that's a show right there. That's a show right there. And honestly, that's all I could have asked for. The other things that really stood out to me that I feel like could be done better, or what I would like to see more from these sorts of queer coming of age shows, are for one, having the protagonist not be exclusively white, or have the love interest not be white, because I feel like we've seen that a lot. And two, let's try and retire like the whole gay guy goes for presumably straight or like curious guy. That's what I really liked in the dynamic in sex education between Raheem and Eric, because I feel like that was very different from what we typically see from like these queer love stories. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that. I want to see like dedicated shows, movies towards that. And I really hope that in the future we can see more of that and get more of that representation, because I feel like that is just as important as like having these stories here in the first place. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Heartstopper. I really did enjoy this show, and I hope that you do or did too. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think about the show? Are you going to watch the show? Have you watched the show? Who is your favorite character? Like, let me know. I want to talk with you down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you're new to the channel, then hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to leave a like in this video because that helps out a lot. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at imuRgency, and I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.